Here's a look at the playoff picture, but first, let's get this out of the way. They finally got in. Congratulations to the Vancouver Canucks. They clinched the spot the same day that the Avs did on Saturday, March 30th, but even though they were idle. How did they get in, you ask? I'll tell you. They needed Minnesota to lose, and they needed Minnesota and St. Louis to lose. St. Louis had to lose regulation, Minnesota didn't. Minnesota had that weird, rare loss in overtime. They actually tried it again. They tried pulling the goalie again in overtime. Now, it worked against Nashville, but on that Saturday night against Vegas, no. So they lost 2-1 overtime, and by the rule, if you pull the goalie for the extra attacker and empty that goal was scored against you, you not only lose the game, but you lose the point you would have had reaching overtime. So yeah, Minnesota ended up with nothing. That's a very rare loss. I think that's the first such occurrence since in about 20 years. But yeah, so Minnesota lost, and surprisingly, the Sharks shut out the Blues that night. So those two losses got the Canucks in. And the Canucks later that day was Easter Sunday. The only game played that day yesterday was the Canucks beating the Ducks 3-2 behind 2 goals from Dakota Joshua. So yeah, it's pretty safe to say they're ready for the playoffs. Speaking of the playoffs, here's a look at the standings beginning with the Eastern Conference. In the Eastern Conference, saw a lot of teams clinch spots during the past week. But in the Atlantic, the Boston Bruins are leading, barely, but they are, with 101 points. The Panthers are second with 99, and the Maple Leafs are kind of surging a little bit with 93 points. They have a good last 10 record. They have the best one out of the top 3. They are 6-3-1 their last 10. Boston 6-4 their last 10, and Florida's under 500 their last 10, 4-5-1. Bit more the Leafs later. In the Metro, the race between the Rangers and Hurricanes remains close. The Rangers lead with 104 points, came out of 101, but that's where the race ends. And guess who's in third place in the Metro with 18 games left, including today? 18 days left in the season. I mean, including today, the Capitals. I ask again, who had the Capitals being this far? I mean, a lot of people thought, well, Ovechkin's focus on the record, they're not going to be in the playoffs, but not only is Ovi kind of scoring goals at his usual crazy pace, Washington has been winning games. They're 6-3-1 in their last 10, and they are just surging their way to a playoff position. They moved ahead in the wild card race last week. Now they're in the top 3 in the Metro. That's amazing. And that's a dogfight between them and Philly. As Philly drops down to the number 2 wild card, the Lightning are still in the number 1 wild card position. They're 4 points behind Toronto for third place in the Atlantic. Philly now drops behind Washington via tiebreaker. Washington has 2 games in hand. Philly has played too many games. They only have 7 games left. But, yeah, and as for the rest of the East, the Red Wings still have a chance, but they need to get it together. They've lost 4 straight, as have Philly. The Islanders are still alive, and the Devils, Penguins, and Sabres, they're hanging by a thread. But a lot could happen in the last 18 days. Meanwhile, here's the Western Conference. In the Western Conference, the Dallas Stars actually lead the entire conference. They're ahead of the Avs by 3 points in the Central because nobody's beating Dallas, and it's giving me a headache as an Avs fan. Nobody's beating Dallas. Dallas has won 7 straight, and that's Dallas won 7 straight, including 1 win against Vancouver, who's a strong playoff competitor, and they're 8-2 in their last 10. This is, oh boy, somebody needs to knock the Stars down a few pegs so that we can catch them. This needs to happen because it's still going to be a while before we play Dallas one more time in the regular season. But so it's Dallas and Colorado, 1-2 in the Central, and the Jets, they are still sinking. They are still sinking. They have lost 6 straight. They're 3-6-1 in their last 10. That's terrible. They are in a their third place position is now distant. They're 9 points out of first. Remember when they were in first place about 2 weeks ago? Yeah, that's changed. And they're in danger of losing that third place spot to Nashville. A little bit more on that later. The Pacific Division, the now playoff bound Canucks reached the 100-point mark. The Oilers are 6 points behind with 94, and Vegas has moved to the third place position in the Pacific with 90 points. The wild cards are the Predators and the Kings. Of course, the Predators had that long point streak come to an end on Thursday when the Arizona Coyotes throttled them, and the Avalanche did the same thing to them on Saturday. So they're moving down just a little bit, but they're still 4 points behind Winnipeg for third place. So third place in that Central, it's still a real possibility for the Predators. It's still a real possibility. The Kings dropped down because Vegas is kind of on a mini roll, and but the Kings still have a chance to move into third place in that Pacific, which would put them again for the third year in a row against the Oilers, most likely in the first round. As for the rest of the West field, it's getting more and more shallow already. 4 West teams are eliminated. The Coyotes got eliminated a few days ago, and you have the Blues and the Wild. The Blues kind of have an outside shot. The Wild, not so much. Their chances are fading. And of course, that pull to goalie gamble that didn't pay off for them. And Calgary and Seattle, they're just waiting for the plug to be pulled out of them. It's going to come sometime this week. But that's it as far as the Western Conference. There is a lot to look forward to in the next week, which is the first week in April. It includes this. Yes, 7 teams are in the playoffs, and an 8th can get in today. That's right. The San Jose Sharks can get in. Ha! April Fool. No. Yes, it is April Fool's Day. Yes, there is a day out named after Edmonton Oilers fans. But in all seriousness, no. It's the Maple Leafs who can join the playoff party, and like with everything else with the Maple Leafs, it gets complicated. So, according to this, Toronto can get in today. If they beat Florida in regulation, they will need the Red Wings to lose in regulation, and any result in the Islanders Flyers game other than an Islanders overtime win. Yeah, it's crazy. If the Leafs win past regulation, overtime or shootout, they need the Red Wings to lose regulation and any result in Islanders Flyers other than an Islanders win in overtime or the shootout. I'm a football fan. I'm used to seeing clinching scenario word salads, and this is definitely one right there. A lot of fellow football fans know what I'm talking about. These scenarios for your team where A can get in the playoffs and A wins, then B, C, and D lose, and E has to tie, and F has to beat G and H and I and all that shit. But that's basically what this is. A lot kind of has to happen for the Leafs to clinch. But if they clinch, the playoff field will be halfway full with 8 in and 8 spots left. And hopefully, I'll be here later tonight to congratulate the Leafs for getting in. And now have a story about them as well. So that is my recap of this past week's action. We are now in the month of April. Starting today, there are 18 days left. My goodness. So yeah, in Toronto, Toronto's game is a big one. They're playing the Florida Panthers. It's a 4-point game. Toronto can move 2 points closer to second place, which is home ice advantage. And that's tonight's action. That's part of tonight's action. Tomorrow, you have Washington playing Buffalo. Buffalo's looking to get ahead, to get closer to a spot. So are the Devils and Penguins, who also play each other. Of course, Wednesday, the TNT games are the Rangers and Devils, and Edmonton and Dallas. I have to go for the Oilers. Oh, God. And we have Pittsburgh and Washington playing each other on Thursday. And then on Friday,